Hey, Grant Hill, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You are one of my childhood heroes, I gotta say. So this is a real treat. But we're talking because about your new memoir that's out. It's called Game, an autobiography. Let's start there. Why write the book? Were you just stuck home during these crazy last couple of years of pandemic, and you thought, well, now's as good a time as any to get this on paper?
Well, that's partially it. I think a little bit before the pandemic, I was thinking about the idea of maybe writing a book. I was enshrined into the Naismith Hall of Fame, back in 2018. And so, that is a reflective moment naturally. And I think that was sort of the spark that ultimately led to me deciding, hey, maybe I should do this. Maybe the time is right. And as you said, during all the craziness of the last couple of years, it at least gave me some time to collect my thoughts and share my story.
Right, exactly. Well, we're looking forward to reading it. Well, you'll get I guess a Cliff Notes version in this interview, but you got to read the whole thing. But remind our listeners, we wanted to talk to you here in DC. WTOP is the big news station in DC, because you grew up around here, right? Well, obviously you're born in Dallas in '72 because your father was, of the Dallas Cowboys, Calvin Hill, but he was traded up here to Washington with George Allen and all those guys in '76. So you grew up around Reston, Virginia. Just memories of growing up here, and were you sort of caught between that Dallas Washington rivalry, or did you go with your dad's old team or his new team, or what do you do?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I mean, we moved right before I turned four years old. We moved to DC, and that's where I grew up in Northern Virginia. And yes, my allegiances were to the Cowboys.
Come
And
on.
in the book, I explain why. In part, I was named by Roger Staubach, the iconic quarterback for the Cowboys, and
He
so
named you? He told your dad to name you?
and that's all in the book. And I
Oh,
get
wow.
into the story of how it all played out. But yeah, so I couldn't let Roger down and betray the Cowboys. But yeah, just great memories, great times. Reston was a beautiful experience. Great people, a lot of diversity. Obviously, very much active in sports, and tended to gravitate towards basketball. But that's home. DC, the DMV, that's home. That's where I came of age. I grew up, and of course, as a basketball player, some of the best basketball players, at least at that time, there was some great basketball in the DMV area. So you didn't have to leave to get the best competition. I got it in Reston. I got it playing in various tournaments, summer leagues in the DC area, and that's where I became the ball player that I eventually became.
Oh yeah, it is a hotbed of basketball around here, youth league all the way up through for sure. And then like to your point that back then, and you had Maryland and Len Bias and all that back in the '80s, Georgetown, Ewing, and I mean Coach Thompson. I mean it was a national brand for basketball. And your mom wanted you to go to Georgetown, right? And your dad was saying no, go to Carolina, and you chose neither. You went to Duke. Why did you go with Duke? Because it's hard for kids to imagine now. Duke is this big brand and Coach K, but they weren't famous really back then. So, why'd you go with Duke? Did you see something in Coach K early on, or what was it?
Well, I get into the book. I mean, the first basketball game that I watched where I fell in love and I wanted to one day hopefully do that was the 1982 NCAA championship game when a freshman named Mike Jordan hit the game-winning shot against Georgetown.
You might have heard of him.
Yeah, and then became Michael Jordan after he hit the shot. But I instantly became a fan of both programs. And, we were in the DC area. We ended up getting season tickets to the Georgetown games at the old Cap Center. And Michael Jackson, who, not the singer, but the basketball player, went to my high school. He was older, and he was a freshman Ewing's sophomore year.
Okay.
So we followed him in high school. We followed him at Georgetown. And through him, I got to get to know the program. And so, yeah, I think my mom sort of preferred Georgetown. And then my dad, loved Dean Smith. But, I fell in love with Coach K. And, he was building his program, his reputation. He was an incredible leader. He really connected with me during the recruiting process. And what's interesting, as you said, I mean, there was reservations, I guess, about Coach K and, could he win the big one?
Yeah.
Prior to me arriving, they had been to 4 Final Fours in 5 years and could not win the big one. And so there was a lot of that noise out there about, Coach K's great program, but he can't win. And it's hard to imagine that or think that now, as you've seen his iconic, legendary career and all the winning and championships he's done. But that was a narrative that was, that was out there at the time. But just he was the right fit. He was the right coach. And I'm surprised at 16 that I had the foresight to make that tough decision, and for me, the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It turned out to be the right decision. You were saying he couldn't get over the hump, and people were saying, but with your group of guys, your freshman year and your sophomore year, you and Coach K and the whole guys, you got over it and you won the NCAA championship in 91, 92. Of course, you went back again your senior year, I guess, and lost to Kentucky in 94 when you were ACC Player of the Year. But of course, one final question on the Duke front. Everyone remembers you for throwing that full court pass to Christian Laettner at the buzzer beater to beat Kentucky, in the Elite Eight in 92. Jamal Mashburn jumping up and down on the sideline for Kentucky, thinking they won it, but you guys rally in the huddle with Coach K. What's that moment like when you're in the huddle and then going to the sidelines? Because for now we've seen it a million times. It's called the shot, but you threw the pass.
I did throw the pass, and it's still, when I watch it and see it played a lot, particularly during March Madness, I still get nervous. But it was a great moment, an iconic moment. Obviously in the moment we weren't aware of just the magnitude of it all. We were all competing, trying to win. That timeout when Sean Woods hit that shot with 2.3 seconds left. I was worried. I was concerned. I thought this was it. I thought our magical run was over. And it was really Coach K and how he took charge of that huddle. And it was really a valuable lesson in leadership. And here we are kind of in a crisis situation. And instead of telling me to make the pass, he asked me to make the pass. He asked if I could do it. And, so, me saying yes and just sort of claiming it, speaking it into existence, saying it in the group, in the huddle for everybody to hear, that was an empowering moment and a powerful moment. And then he went to Christian Laettner and asked him, can you make the shot? And then Christian, who, was super confident and had not missed a shot from the field or from the free throw line the entire game, Christian said, if Grant makes the pass, I'll make the shot. And so now I'm nervous again, because now I'm like, okay, now I got to make the pass. But it was a great moment. And it was, like I said, I was 19 years old at the time, and you just lost in the game. You're competing. And it was just a situation where we had the ball last and we were able to deliver. But Kentucky was certainly very worthy of winning that game, and really one of the great college NCAA tournament games of all time.
Yes, the game was just I remember watching it as a kid. The game was just as big as the shot. Of course, the shot's now you're part of arguably probably the most famous college basketball play of all time. And it's funny, I just riffing real quick. I ended up, I'm a Terp up here, you grew up around here, so and I went to college. But our born and bred hatred for Duke didn't really start until after that, because you guys had to get really good after that, and then there was the Terp rivalry. But back then, man, I'd say even I was a Duke fan with that shot. Everybody was a Duke fan with that shot, just because it was so huge. Real quick, tell me about the, getting drafted by the Pistons, number 3 in the NBA draft. Our Washington Bullets, I think were number 5 that year. So we were selfishly hoping you fell, but we knew it wasn't going to happen. But you signed that $45 million rookie contract. There's the Sprite commercials, Obey Your Thirst, all that stuff. And everyone was sort of, pitting you as the next Michael Jordan. You turned down Nike for Fila. You had Tupac and Method Man wearing the shoes. You mentioned that in the book stuff. But just take me into that whole whirlwind of that rookie year.
Yeah, no, it was a whirlwind. And, I had a great 4 years at Duke, and maybe in part because we were so visible at Duke. that when I went into the NBA, people knew me. We had been on national television a number of times, and so right away I had success right away, and certainly a lot of attention and commercials and magazine articles, like stuff that I'm not even sure I ever really dreamed about, and it was all happening very quickly. And so it was overwhelming at times, and a little bit uncomfortable with it because it wasn't something that I was coveting. And so I didn't say no to it. I mean, I did it all. It was incredible. But I get into that in the book about just jumping into a new world now and jumping into this extreme level of celebrity and how to navigate that and how I managed that and dealt with that. But certainly was an interesting time, and it happened really, really quickly
Yeah.
when I entered the league.
Oh, absolutely. I want to remind, in case there's some younger listeners watching this, I want to remind them how friggin' good you were during that Pistons run there, pre-injury and everything. That you obviously you won the Rookie of the Year in '95, shared it with Jason Kidd, but I think you were the first Pistons rookie to score 1,000 points since Isaiah Thomas, the legend. Your second year, you lead the NBA in triple doubles with 10 and lead the All-Star fan voting over one Michael Jordan, who inspired you when you were watching. I think and over those first 6 seasons, you scored like over 9,000 points, over 3,000 rebounds, 2,000 assists. I think only Oscar Robertson, Larry Bird, and LeBron James have done better since then. So just memories real quick of that whole, I guess what we call your prime NBA heyday there in Detroit. You were unstoppable, man.
Yeah, it was an incredible start. First 6 years, I was on this great trajectory, very exciting. I think one of the things I realized in writing this book was that I didn't fully appreciate it, and I didn't fully celebrate it. I was chasing Isaiah. I was trying to get to this legendary status, and I didn't feel that I deserved to celebrate until I got there. And so I was constantly like pushing forward and like, what do I have to do to get there? And what do I have to do to accomplish? What do I have to do to win? And so I didn't fully enjoy it in the moment. And I think the process of writing the book and going back and taking a look at it, I really was able to appreciate and celebrate some of those wonderful experiences early on in my career in Detroit.
Right. To your point, because you don't fully appreciate, you take it for granted when you're in it. A, you're young, and B, you think it's gonna last forever. You can't have the foresight. And of course you and all of your fans, we were rocked with that, that when you had that ankle injury in 2000, and not just the injury, but there was a surgery in 2003. Is like life-threatening complications. You had to miss the whole 03-04 season. By that point, I think you're with the Orlando Magic. But talk about how devastating that was. And, I'm sure you write about it in the book. Has that book writing process allowed you to sort of, I don't know, any catharsis of that really rough, more frustrating time of your career?
Yeah, no, it was tough. I mean, I life-threatening. I had a situation where, a surgery, if it didn't work, then the only other option was amputation. So a lot went on, and a lot that people weren't aware of. And, I think when something sort of traumatic happens, I think we suppress it to get through it. And I did that. And the process of writing the book, I was really able to unpack a lot of the mental and the mental and emotional part of going through that whole ordeal. I didn't really deal with that in real time. I was just trying to get through it and doing whatever I had to do. But, going back and writing about it, living in that space, trying to retell what happened, sharing with, in the book, sort of all that happened with regard to the injury, I realized I still had some baggage I had to deal with and process. And so I wasn't aware that I still had to deal with some of that, but the residue of all of that was still there. And but yeah, I mean, I once again, I take you through some of the highs of great success, winning championships at Duke, certainly success individually in college, or excuse me, in the NBA early on in Detroit, but then also the injuries and the emotions and the difficulty and the challenges and the conversations and all of that. So really just a roller coaster ride of feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and sharing that with those who read it.
Absolutely. And, it's really great that writing it has provided sort of that catharsis of, the time with Orlando and Phoenix and the Clippers and all, and the injuries and all that. But we do want to talk about, you had another big high. I mean, not only the NBA Hall of Fame in 2018, but we got to mention before we run, you were part of, what was it? Dream Team Part 2, the Olympic gold medal in '96 in Atlanta. Do you still have that hanging somewhere around the house? Where do you keep the gold medal?
Yes, I do have the gold medal, and that was an incredible achievement and accomplishment representing my country, playing on that Olympic, world, global stage, and playing with some great players. Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Hakeem Olajuwon, legends of the NBA. And so, really one of the great accomplishments for me personally.
Absolutely. And I guess just sort of final seconds, remind us, we still see you all over with anything related to the NBA now. You're director of the U.S. Basketball men's national team. I guess that's sort of your Olympic ties carried on to the present. You're co-owner of the Atlanta Hawks. That's a cool deal. And then also we see you on TV as an analyst at CBS and all the Turner networks with all the games going on now. So how fulfilling is it now that you're at this spot in life? You can kind of look back, now you're more of a managerial and an analyst, a co-owner position. It's you're on the other side of the coin now.
Yeah, it's actually really a lot of fun. I mean, I love the game. I obviously can't play it anymore, but to still work and be around the game and have a number of different roles and responsibilities, Team USA, ownership with the Hawks, television, March Madness. I'm even on the board of the NCAA. I mean, just, being in these leadership roles around the sport, it's challenging, it's fun. But it's, I'm really, really fortunate and grateful for that. And I just love basketball, and to be able to serve it, to be able to work in it, to be able to hopefully make it better is something that I don't take lightly. And very, very grateful of, the long-standing relationship and connection to the game of basketball.
Final question. Who's the best player you ever played against at any level? Could have been college, pros, Olympics, anything.
Well, I mean, the best player ever was Michael Jordan. I mean, I think the best player that I had to guard, I didn't guard Michael. I guarded Scotty.
Right. You were more of a small forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So Scotty and I used to battle each other back in those Detroit days. But, the player I had the toughest time against was Kobe Bryant. And that was more so when I was towards the end of my career. I was in Phoenix, and I was, I was given the responsibility of trying to slow him down and guard him. But he was by far the toughest opponent I had to go against and try to stop.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Yep.
All right. Well, so many great, memories here, but, read about them in depth and so much more we didn't even have time to cover. You got to pick it up. The book is called Game and Autobiography by the legendary NBA Hall of Famer, Grant Hill. Thanks so much for joining us. This was a blast.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Jason.
And you're always welcome back here in the DMV, my friend.
I appreciate it. It's always good to be able to come back home.